Within a course are the materials where you'll be adding the content for your course. Now, if you look under Add Materials, again, Materials is selected on the left-hand side, and then I select Add Materials, you'll see a number of options of things that can be added into a course. Before we start examining these, I also want to look at the Resources page. And when you select Resources, you'll also see Add Resources, and it looks very similar to the materials. Now, I want you to keep in mind that things that you have in resources will be available to other classes and you can reuse. So again, this is like your gigantic filing cabinet. So I would encourage you to be storing things in your resources. Now, that's not to say that you can't create them within your course and then move them to the resource. That's certainly possible, but notice you can also import from resources as well. Before you get too carried away with creating resources and materials, we want to think about being trained and hopefully getting guidance from Schoology as far as best practices. One of the complaints I've heard with Schoology from others on social media is that students have to click so much. And so as we plan, we definitely want to plan with the student in mind and thinking about how quickly can they access their materials. And if we are requiring them to click within several things to accomplish their work, that may be difficult. Obviously, you see up here a folder, and that can be created to organize units, those kinds of things. If assignment that's in here, this is where they can actually turn things in. So you can give the assignment a name, description. Within all of this description, you can add things like links, or you can add media like pictures and videos into that, symbols, equations, LaTeX. All of this is some of the math areas. You can put a table in. So all of those are helpful. Down here, you can add a file, again, a link, a resource of some sort, and you can add an audio or video recording as well. Like similar assignments, you can put due dates in here. You can put the number of points, the category, whether it's ungraded or if you set up categories in your gradebook setup, you can use those. And the grading period, that will probably be set for you through Skyward. Down below, this is how you can align to learning objectives, obviously, but you can individually assign. You can lock an assignment, which means students can no longer access that. At this particular one, the submissions are enabled, so I'm expecting them to submit something. If I didn't want them to be submitting anything, I could turn that off. And this means it's published to students. Again, you could take that off so they can't see it right away. This is their grade statistics. That's disabled right now. And do you want them to be able to comment on the assignment? So all of those features are within an assignment as you're creating. You can also add an assessment. Now notice there's a test quiz, and actually assessment is newer in Schoology, and they're actually encouraging people to create assessments. If you've been using Schoology before and you have tests and quizzes, you can actually convert them over to assessments. So since we're new to this, we're going to be using assessments instead. Now there's a lot of features that you can set up with this, and some of it is just a matter of you setting some settings to begin with. And I'm just going to do create so you can see that on the screen. So these are different assessment settings you can set for this particular test that you're creating. I won't go through all of these because we're not creating these right now anyway, but just so you can see that. I did really want you to see the kinds of questions. So there's a significant amount of kinds of questions that can be added. That would be really helpful on that part of it. So again, just wanted you to realize what was available with assessments. Obviously, we can add a file or a link right into the course as well. I can add a discussion if I want students to be answering questions and maybe replying to each other. And I do want to bring about this add page. I found this pretty unique when we had another teacher from a neighboring district show us how she uses Schoology, and I thought this was pretty helpful. So if she had a lesson for students and she didn't want to have, again, several clicks for it, she created a page, and I think of this almost like a little web page as an example, that this might be, the day's date or the name of the task or something like that. And she might have several things listed here for them to do. And again, maybe this one doesn't have a submission part of it, so it's not like that kind of an assignment, but maybe she wanted them to um, put some specific directions on here and then insert a video on here so that you could put your URL to a YouTube video in here. And maybe there are a couple of them as well. And there are things that you want to do in between or page directions. So you can put a lot of things all into one spot instead of listing them all separately. So that's just something to consider, and I'm anxious to hear what the trainers say about that part of it. A media album would be like a group of pictures. Probably not something we use a whole lot, but you may have an instance to use that. And I've also mentioned to you already about resources, and that resources are available through Schoology. So if you wanted to go search for some resources, something that would fit your course, you can actually do that as well. So you can see there's lots of choices to add to your course.